Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Minneapolis City Planning Commission meeting of January 13, 2014. My name is Ted Tucker. I serve as president of the commission. Joining me today are Commissioners Kronzer, Brown, Wynn, Slack, Cohen, and we have two new additions to introduce you to. The far end there, representing the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board, is Meg Forney, replacing Liz Walensky, who went on to greater glory as president of the Park Board, correct? Welcome, Meg. I look forward to working with you. And also new today is Lisa Bender from the City Council. She'll be chairing the Zoning and Planning Committee there, and takes the spot that Gary Schiff filled so ably for, was it 12 years? My goodness, yes. So welcome to both of you. At the same time, we do have one member leaving after a long time. Vice President Wynn this is her last meeting, sorry to say. We do have a resolution of appreciation, which I will read for you. Lauren Wynn, for her dedicated service to the Minneapolis City Planning Commission. Whereas Lauren has served on the City of Minneapolis City Planning Commission since 2006, and whereas Lauren has served on the Commission's Executive Committee, first as Secretary from March 2009 to February 2013, and more recently as Vice President from February 2013 to January 2014, and has chaired the Commission's Committee of the Whole meetings over the course of the past year, and whereas Lauren has participated in over 164 Planning Commission public hearings, making decisions and recommendations on over 2,800 land use applications and adoption of numerous small area plans, policy plans, and the Minneapolis Plan for Sustainable Growth. And whereas Lauren has provided substantial expertise related to sustainability and green building, including assisting city staff with becoming LEED accredited, as well as serving on the Building and Energy Working Group for the Minneapolis Climate Action Plan. And whereas Lauren has demonstrated tremendous dedication and generosity in sharing both her time and knowledge, and whereas the Minneapolis City Planning Commission wishes to formally recognize Lauren's dedicated service to the City Planning Commission and City, now therefore be it resolved by the City Planning Commission and the staff to the City Planning Commission of the City of Minneapolis that we thank Lauren Wynn for her faithful and constructive service in extending the progress of this city and in promoting the welfare of its people. That we extend her our best wishes for good health and happiness, trusting that the friendships and understanding built in our mutual undertakings will be with us always. Approved, Minneapolis Planning Commission on this 13th day, January 2014. I think actually you should approve it. Is there a motion to approve this? Second? All in favor? Okay. I wanted to add just a few comments here. I will very much miss Lauren, who has been a very important part of making this such a collegial body over the, 8 years you've been here? And I appreciate all your efforts to create a city that is both sustainable and growing. I think our comprehensive plan that you worked so hard on was well named, and you worked hard to implement that. So I thank you for that. Personally, I thank you for your help to me as Vice President in moving meetings along and helping me remember what I'm up to. So that's been terrific. I may have more comments for you when we have a more informal gathering, remembering some particular times. Are there others who want to say anything at this time? Jason.
Commissioner Wynn, I think that resolution just begins to scratch the surface about what you've really done for this commission. So on behalf of the staff, thank you so much for all your support and your expertise. The thing that stands out to me, I think, the most in that resolution is just how dedicated you have been to with sharing your time and your substantial expertise. I think you're one of the most generous people I've ever met when it comes to sharing those things. So you are going to be greatly missed on the commission.
Commissioner Wynn.
Well, at this time, I'd like to also thank everyone. It's been a pleasure, and it's also bittersweet to be able to serve on the city and work with really great people. I've had the fortune of having being appointed by the former Mayor Ryback, but also then looking forward to seeing what the commission, but also new council and new mayor does as far as progressing Minneapolis towards a sustainable city. So I'm looking forward towards that. As far as working with all the commissioners, with Commissioner Slack and Commissioner Kronzer, I appreciate having a second cycle of working with you. In our previous life, we did work on the new Washington Boulevard with Mayor Ryback, former Mayor Ryback, together, and appreciate that experience. And hopefully there's a third reincarnation, perhaps, that the three of us will work together down the road. Commissioner Brown, I've had the fortune to serve with you very briefly, but I appreciate your input in terms of your experience on planning and contribution to the commission. Commissioner Cohen, I appreciate our conversations. I appreciate the banter. Our conversations on balconies and the back and forth. And so it's been very active as far as our conversations. I very much appreciate it. And with new commissioners, with Meg Forney, but also Lisa Bender, I look forward to all the activities and actions that you bring forward to making the city of Minneapolis better. And lastly, we have Commissioner Tucker, who I've had the fortune of serving with for 8 years almost. And he's probably the most humblest and just humble being that you could probably work with. So I've definitely learned a lot from him. There's more to the book than its cover, perhaps, with Commissioner Tucker, and also with Jason and staff. I've definitely learned more about the process. I came to the Planning Commission from the private side with being a practicing architect, and now I work as a sustainability consultant. But I appreciate having the public side experience and also working with Jason, Kimberly, Hillary, Shanna, Mei-Ling, Janelle, and Aaron, Jim, and Hyla, and there's more, staff that I'm not mentioning here, but definitely everyone in our conversations have made me a better person, but also just moving ahead. So thank you for this experience, for letting me participate as a commissioner the last 8 years. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, now let's continue with our regular meeting. At this time, please be sure that any electronic devices are silenced. Yeah. Our first action is to approve the actions from the meeting of December 2nd, 2013. Commissioner Wynn, can I have a motion?
There's a motion, so moved.
Okay, all in favor of approving the actions of that meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, those are approved. Move on to sorting out our agenda. The agenda that's for most of you on green pieces of paper out. You might have found it out in the hallway. We'll go through them and determine which items are to be continued, which ones we will put on the consent agenda, where we will approve the staff recommendation without further discussion, and items that we will have presentation from staff and public hearing and discussion from the commissioners. So I'll go through these one by one and let me know if you want to have these items on discussion. Item number 1, alley vacation at 300 2nd Street South and 333 1st Street South will be continued to the meeting of March 24th, 2014. Item number 2, 42 Dite Lofts, 3136, 4136, 4140, and 4152 Dite Avenue will be placed on consent unless someone wishes to speak in opposition to or change the staff report. Item number 3 is a rezoning at 716 to 718 West 34th Street. Is anyone here wishing to have a discussion about that? You want to have a discussion? Okay, we'll move item number 3 to discussion. Item number 4, Harriet's, formerly Crooked Pint Ale House, 4000 to 4008 Lindale Avenue South. I mean, we're going to put that on discussion. Item number 5 is 2827 Williams Avenue Southeast and 2828 University Avenue Southeast. Is there anyone here who wants to speak in opposition to or modify the staff report? If not, we'll put that on consent. Item number 6, a commercial addition at 2500 University Avenue Northeast, will be continued to our next meeting, February 3rd, 2014. Item number 7, a parking expansion at 300, 306, and 308 Lowry Avenue Northeast will be put on consent unless someone wishes to speak in opposition to or modify staff recommendation. Okay, that goes on consent. Item number 8, Block E at 600 Hennepin Avenue will be continued to the meeting of March 3rd, 2014. Item number 9 is the Lynn Lake Brewery, 2934 Lindale Avenue South. That will be on consent unless someone wishes to speak in opposition to or modify staff recommendation for item 9. Okay, that's on consent. Item number 10, DC Group Addition, 1977 West River Road and 9 West Broadway will be on consent unless someone wishes to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation. Seeing none, that's on consent as well. Item number 11, Fair State Brewing Cooperative, 2506 Central Avenue Northeast will be on consent unless someone wishes to speak in opposition to or modify staff recommendation. Okay, that stays on consent. Item number 12, Walgreens Pharmacy, 2600 to 2622 Central Avenue Northeast will be on consent unless someone wants to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation. That's on consent. And number 13, Betty Danger's Country Club, 2501 through 2519 Marshall Street Northeast will be on consent unless someone wishes to. You want to talk about that one? Okay, we will move that to discussion. 3, 4. Okay, so the agenda will be items for hearing and discussion will be items 3, 4, and 13. Items for the consent agenda will be items 2, 5, 7, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Items to be continued will be items 1, 6, and 8. Okay, Commissioner Slack first.
President Tucker, I just want to disclose that I am currently working for Hennepin County on the Lowry Avenue Corridor Plan through Northeast Minneapolis, and item number 7 exists within the project area.
Okay, thank you for that disclosure. It's so noted. Commissioner Wynn?
Thank you, President Tucker. At this time, I'd like to recuse myself from item number 10, DC Group Addition. I was a consultant on the project for which they participated in the program for. Thanks.
Recusal at every meeting. Okay, so that will be our agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Okay, any discussion on that? And we will use that as our agenda. We move now to a report from the Committee of the Whole, our last one from Commissioner Wynn, Vice President Wynn.
Thank you, President Tucker. At this time, I'd like to move staff's recommendation for the 3 land sales at 3015 Morgan Avenue North, 52 18th Avenue Northeast, 2523 Washington Street Northeast, and also the approval of the adoption of the 2014 CPC calendar.
Okay, is there any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Those items are approved. No action items, no item to withdraw. Okay, now items to be continued. May I have a motion to continue item 1 to the meeting of March 24th, 2014? Second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Okay. May I have a motion to move item number 6 to the meeting, continue it to the meeting of February 3rd, 2014? Okay, all in favor, say aye. And finally, may I have a motion to move item number 8 to the meeting of March 3rd, 2014? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Okay, thank you very much. Now we will move to the consent agenda. I will open the public hearing for items 2, 5, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12. Again, is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation for any of those items? If not, we will proceed to approve it as noted in the staff recommendation. Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda? Oh, I guess I should have closed the public hearing. Now ask for the motion. Okay, moved. Thank you. All in favor of approving the items on the consent agenda, please say aye. Okay, those are approved. We move now to our items for discussion. The first one is item number 3. And that's rezoning at 716, 718 West 34th Street. Mailing Anderson to staff.
President Tucker? Just for the record, the applicant shares a name with my wife, but however, I have no relationship to the applicant.
Okay.
Well, I'm not sure. Oh, I see. Good evening, Commissioners. Pat Fitzgerald has submitted a land use application to rezone the property located at 716 West 34th Street from the R2B to the C1 Neighborhood Commercial District to allow a sports and health facility. The property contains an existing one-story building that was originally constructed as a public garage in 1920. Staff's review of city records suggests that the property belonged to a commercial zoning district for the majority of its existence until 1999, when a new zoning code was adopted and the property was rezoned to R2B. At that time, the structure contained a motorcycle repair shop, which then became a legally non-conforming use. The property lost its non-conforming rights after the use changed to a bicycle apparel shop in 2010. The applicant is proposing to rezone the property to C1 as the current and proposed use of a sports and health facility is not allowed in the R2B district. This is the future land use map. The property is designated as urban neighborhood on the future land use map, and urban neighborhoods are predominantly residential and contain a range of densities, with highest densities usually concentrated around identified nodes and corridors. Lyndale Avenue South is a half block east of the property and is a designated community corridor. Community corridors generally contain small-scale retail sales and services serving the immediate neighborhood. Staff finds that the rezoning petition is consistent with the comprehensive plan and is in the public interest and not solely that of the property owner for a number of reasons. First, the commercial uses allowed in the C1 district will contribute to the overall vitality of the area without having a detrimental impact on the surrounding area. Rezoning to C1 would allow for the retention of small-scale commercial uses in close proximity to a community corridor, as well as enhance residential livability in the neighborhood. The proposed zoning would be compatible with the zoning classifications and existing commercial uses of other properties in the area. The properties to the southwest, and north of the property have been zoned R2B since 1963. The properties to the east and southeast of the subject property were within the same commercially zoned node as the subject site until 1999, when the subject site was downzoned to R2B. So of the 4 parcels on this block that were zoned commercial until 1999, the applicant's property is the only one that is now located in a residential zoning district. Given that there has not been a noticeable change in the character of the development surrounding the property before or after it was rezoned in 1999, it would be appropriate to reestablish its commercial zoning status. And finally, it is unlikely that the existing structure would be used for residential purposes given its structure and layout. It is also unlikely that the building could be used for non-residential uses in the R2B district since its lot area of 1,648 square feet is far below the 20,000 square foot minimum requirement for most non-residential uses in this district. There are 6 letters distributed tonight regarding this application. 2 are in support of the rezoning, 4 are in opposition. Staff has not received correspondence from the neighborhood group, and staff is recommending approval of the rezoning petition. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Kronzer.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. Can you explain why in 2010 it lost its non-conforming use when it changed from one commercial use to another commercial use?
Sure. So at that time, it was already R2B, and the motorcycle shop was legally non-conforming when the property was downzoned, and then after the bicycle repair shop went in, that was conforming with the R2B, but not with the C1, so they were not able to. Since the legal non-conforming status had been expired for more than a year, that's why it lost its non-conforming rights for that use. So it hadn't been in use for more than a year.
So was the bike shop operating illegally based on its zoning?
It was legal because when it was downzoned, it was already in existence, so it was legally non-conforming. But then when the use changed over in 2010 to a bicycle repair shop, then it was no longer a legally non-conforming building.
Okay, so is the bike shop legal in an R2B district?
No, it is not.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions?
Well, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. The bicycle repair shop, the bicycle repair shop would not have been. I'm sorry. The bike repair shop would not have been allowed in R2B, but the bicycle apparel shop would have been allowed in R2B. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm getting this wrong.
Just one point of
Okay.
clarification. Any commercial use that would have moved into the building should have gone through a change of non-conforming use application, and that didn't happen. So I think that's kind of what it comes down to in terms of why technically they lost their non-conforming rights.
Thanks.
Okay, other questions for staff at this point? Not, thank you very much. At this point, I will open the public hearing. Come on up, identify your name and address, and please speak about the application before us.
President Tucker, Commissioners. My name is Edwin Balkos. I live at 3349 Aldrich Avenue South. That is the property directly west of the property that wishes rezoning. I've lived in Southwest Minneapolis for 50 years, as has my wife. We've lived in that house, 3349, since '88, raised our kids there. And the uses have changed over the years, but I'd really like to show a picture here. I don't know if anybody can help me with the technology. That might be good enough. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, so this is Aldrich here. This is 34th. This is the property in question for the rezoning. This is my home on the corner. As you can see, it's directly next door. The wall is actually the edge of my backyard. And you can also see that it's on the same side of the alley, and it's even closer than many neighboring garages to our house. I think that's what makes it kind of a unique situation, is that there is no buffer whatsoever. So here's a picture from 34th Street. Again, here's the subject property. The edge of this vine here, that is the end of my yard, and that is the wall of the adjacent property, 716, 718. Here's a shot from the corner. This is kind of hard to see. I wasn't a master of Google Earth. I just tried it today. But if you look here, this is, again, the wall of the subject property. It is the end of my yard in the back there. So I believe my letter is part of the public record, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'd like to hit the highlights. I believe we're here because of the discovery that there was a and I might get some of this terminology wrong, so you guys can help me out with that. But I believe it was because of the discovery of non-conforming use. So the applicant wishes to rezone. The current tenant runs a CrossFit gym. That is who's in there now. And there are some serious vibration and noise issues that are occurring because they drop free weights from overhead, some in excess of 300 pounds. Now, the applicant has been very nice to help us work through that, but the fact of the matter is that still occurs, and that is very disturbing. So for the first 20 years, that property had a single occupant. It wasn't a repair shop. He painted motorcycle parts. Very little foot traffic, one guy. There were very few clients. Then it became the bike apparel warehouse office. There were 4 to 6 employees. They all drove their own cars for the most part. Maybe some of them biked, but there were a lot of cars there. And then they had client interaction as well. And now it's this CrossFit gym. So there has been an increase in foot traffic, there's been a reduction in parking, and there have been noise complaints, and I believe that's what led to the discovery of the non-conforming use. I understand that there was a city mapping study done in '99, and there must have been a reason that the city chose to rezone that as R2B. I believe the decision was made because our residential property, again, directly abuts 716, 718. Our yard ends at that exterior wall. There is no buffer. And I believe it's typically an alley that often separates residence and business. The current classification of 716, 718 as R2B does not inhibit future use. Requiring an application for a change of nonconforming use would help ensure that current and future property owners' proposals would be given some level of scrutiny and that appropriate and reasonable conditions of use can be examined and or applied. If rezoned to C1, there could be livability issues that are not addressed. Nearby residents should have a say in future development that might affect their property values and even their quality of life. It seems that rezoning to C1 would be a bit of a reward for noncompliance. I would argue that given the circumstances, there should be more scrutiny by the city in the future, not less. So again, my wife and I oppose the rezoning of 716, 718 West 34th Street from R2B to C1.
Okay, let's see if there are any questions. Commissioner Cohen?
If there were some way to eliminate the vibrations and noise caused by people dropping 300-pound free weights from over their heads onto their feet area, if there were some way to eliminate that noise and eliminate those vibrations in your house, would you have any real objection to the rezoning?
Absolutely. It can still be used as for non-residential purposes, but if it's rezoned C1, there's a laundry list of things that people can put in there, including a restaurant that serves alcohol.
Okay, you've answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, other questions, commissioners? Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this matter, please come on up to the podium and give your name and address.
Hi, my name is Susan Leash. I live at 3325 Aldrich Avenue South, which is just in the middle of the block around the corner. And I just wanted to reiterate what my neighbor brought up, is that it seems like typically the alley is what divides. And being that we're so close to Lindale, that, you know, it's that alley that's really that marker that on that side of the alley, there is commercial. And then on our side of the alley, it's residential. And it's as if this property would have almost at one point been the garage to their property. I don't know if that's historically accurate or not, but it literally is like where our driveway is and our garage is. So I just wanted to say that I too am opposed, and that, so, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Commissioner Wynn?
Yes, could you elaborate on your reasons? Is it, again, for the noise, the same reasonings that the previous person had stated?
You know, I understand the problems that he has. I don't hear that noise because my property does not butt up against that property. But going forward, if the ownership of that property should change, if there could be any change going forward, it then being that it would now be a commercial space, as Edwin says, anything could go in there. And being that it, you know, really is on the residential side of the alley and has been residential. Here, but that colorful one. Where are we here? So as you see on the red buildings, where it is, those are commercial properties. The property we're talking about is this little gray area here. It's across the alley. And I don't know that there's anything in any city charter or anything that says that the alley is any kind of division point, but it just seems that we're really encroaching into our neighborhood with retail.
Okay. Other questions? I don't see any.
If this
Commissioner
has been
Forney?
presented to CARAG, the Neighborhood Association, and if so, what if they weighed in on it?
I didn't have a chance to do that.
Can we hear from staff the answer to this?
I spoke with Carrie today, and they haven't had a chance to meet about it, but I encourage them to provide their comments before the city council meeting.
Okay, yes, so this will automatically come to the Zoning and Planning Committee, so their comments will be included in that discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this matter, please come on up and state your name and address. And
Hi, I'm Steve Petermeyer. I live at 30, pardon? Great.
So no need to repeat the letter. But
No, I'm not intending to. I live at 3329 Aldrich Avenue South and have for 20 years. I'm basically here to support Edwin's position. I don't feel the noise. I live next to Susan and Mark in the middle of the block. But I think the character of the business that's currently there is markedly different than the previous businesses that have occupied the space. I was walking my dog this morning. There were 7 people in there working out at 5:45 in the morning. So that kind of thing didn't typically happen with either with Tom when he was doing the motorcycle custom painting or with the bike apparel shop. In fact, the bike apparel shop was mainly an online shop, and when I wanted to buy a bike jersey for my brother, I stopped in there, but it was kind of awkward because they usually handle things online. But so this space, since the gym has been in there, It's kind of bizarre. There isn't any signage. There's no postage about what the hours of the gym are. I don't even know if it's a private club, if people could join from the neighborhood. I don't know if anybody from the neighborhood has joined. If it was Pilates, I've signed up for some Pilates further up Lindale, but this place doesn't do Pilates as far as I can tell. There's little information for neighbors to recognize. So the traffic in and out of the facility goes from early in the morning to late in the evening. They're there at 9, 10 o'clock at night when I'm walking my dog before bedtime. They also are there every day of the week, even on Sunday. They're not as late on Sundays, but it's a little different usage than the other previous patrons have been. During the better weather, there's also been clientele that they'll run up and down the alley when they're doing their workouts. The building has big garage door style doors with glass in their glass, and so when it's hot, they open those up. So I'm assuming I think it started in the fall. It's been a few months. So mainly, of course, they have the doors closed now, but you can see them working out. The parking has gotten much worse on 34th Street. So I typically, when you're trying to turn from Lindale onto 34th, I think that was one of the land use things that you're supposed to. The property should be enhancing traffic flow, and this adding to the other successful businesses at the intersection seems to have compounded some of the trafficking issues. So when people are turning in onto 34th from Lindale, it's really tight spaces. You have, I don't know, it's just a little bit more difficult to get in and out of the alley onto 34th Street and onto Lindale. So those are some of the concerns that we have as neighbors, and I think the fact that this could permanently change the zoning status of the property so that it's not under a non-conforming license review for each business that might be proposed. It might, so that neighbors and the commission can determine more of a suitable commercial use.
Let's see if
fits
there are
with the neighborhood.
any questions from commissioners. I don't see any.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Others wishing to speak on this matter? Come on up. Is the applicant here? Did you wish to speak?
Didn't sign in, but
Oh,
my
that's
name
fine.
is Pat Fitzgerald, and I am the owner of the building.
Okay.
And I have concerns, as Edwin does, about 300-pound weights being dropped in my building, and we have been working closely with the tenant to try to mitigate that, but I understand there's still some onesie, twosies, and maybe even more that I'm unaware of that are being dropped, which is a concern of mine. The tenant has been notified that their lease is terminating. They had a 3-year lease, but they're moving out this spring. So I will be looking for a new tenant, and I would like a photographer, an architect's office, or perhaps a yoga studio to go in, but each one would require a non-conforming use certificate from what I understand, and each one would be different. So that's why, together with staff, we've pursued C1 status.
Okay. Any questions?
Could I ask? Signatures from contiguous neighbors. Could someone, Mei-Ling, or just review that?
Commissioner Bender and Commissioners, in order to rezone from a residence district to a commercial district, in order to even have your application deemed complete, you need to obtain signatures of approval from at least two-thirds of the property owners within 100 feet of the property in question. So the applicant was able to obtain those signatures.
All but Edwin. And I don't blame him due to the noise issues that he's been.
Commissioner Wynn, you have a question?
I have a question / comment. I guess I know of another CrossFit location on Lindale, or not Lindale, but Nicollet that had closed because they had a residential neighbor that had also complained about the weights being dropped, and therefore they had moved their gym. So I'm curious of what type of measures you're planning on implementing, because you're the building owner, correct?
Correct.
For future tenants.
For the CrossFit function will no longer exist, and it's partially my fault for not understanding CrossFit. as I now have come to understand it. The current tenant is actually a long-term tenant of mine. The Balance Fitness Studio used to occupy the building that I own adjacent, next to the Bull Run Coffee Shop. So I own that building as well. And when they came to me looking for space, after Twin Six outgrew that space, I thought it would be great to have them come back into the neighborhood, but I didn't know that this use would be more aggressive than the former use. So it's been an unfortunate learning experience for all of us. But we've tried lifting platforms, but the tenant has agreed to lift the heavy weights and drop them elsewhere. But from what I understand from Edwin is that isn't consistent. So we're working through it. But they will be leaving May 1st.
Okay, other questions? I don't see any. Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to provide new information on this application to rezone? Anyone else? If not, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, we have just the one application to rezone R2B to C1. Staff recommends approval. Commissioner Wynn?
At this time, I'd like to move staff's recommendation to approve the rezoning from R2B to C1.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion on this matter? Commissioner Wynn?
I think at this time, just because of location and adjacent zoning to C1, I feel that the proposed C1 use would be compatible in the residential area, and I would encourage that the building owner would enforce some standards or policies for new future tenants to look at parking hours of operation, but also noise mitigation between the people that operate your building, so that it helps make a better neighborhood. But I do feel that the zoning and C1 is compatible.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to add that one of the findings we need to make when considering a rezoning is that there aren't reasonable uses of the property under the current zoning. And I think in this instance, that's certainly true, especially due to the small size of the lot. It's just not a lot of residential uses wouldn't really work there. So because of that, I would also support the motion.
Thank you. Commissioner Cohen?
Mr. Wittenberg, do I understand correctly that they have the petition with 2/3 signatures on it for the rezoning? That petition is okay.
That's correct. The city attorney's office verified that.
Do I understand correctly that the neighborhood association has not yet voiced their opinion on this? Do I understand that correctly?
I believe that's correct as well.
Okay. I can't support this at this time for this reason. The major change that you make in a rezoning is going from residential to commercial, and has often been recited on this body, rezoning is forever. I think it is premature, particularly in light of the fact that apparently this tenant is going to be gone and there's going to be another tenant. Who knows what that tenant will be, but within a C1 group, there's a wide range of possibilities. I think it's premature for us to act on this, and I am not comfortable supporting it at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Kronzer?
Thank you, President Tucker. I think C1 is appropriate here at this location. It's a very small building. It's under 2,000 square feet. There's not a lot of uses that could use this building successfully as a business, and it is a small space that small businesses could use and afford. If you look at the economics behind new construction and existing buildings are needed for small business to start. And I think there's a long history of this property being a commercial use, and I can support the rezoning. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Bender?
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge first that this will go to the Zoning and Planning Committee that I chair and to the City Council. At this time, I do support the rezoning. It has the signatures from the adjacent neighbors. I don't want to see vacant buildings here, and I think it would be very difficult, as others have mentioned, to use this for residential. I am very interested to hear what the neighborhood has to say, and that will happen before it does go to the city council. So with that reservation, I'll be supporting the rezoning.
Any other commissioners wishing to speak? Yeah, just to remind folks that with a rezoning, that automatically goes to the city council with a recommendation from this body. So there is adequate time for the neighborhood, whose opinion we value highly, to speak up on this. So the timing works out well. Any other comments? If not, clerk, please call a roll on the rezoning.
Bender?
Aye.
Brown? Aye. Cohen? No. Borney? Wynn? Kronzer? Slack? So that's 5-2.
Okay, that rezoning, we recommend that rezoning be granted. Thank you very much. We move on now to item number 4, which is Harriet's, formerly known as Crooked Pint Ale House at 4008 Lindale Avenue South. Hillary Dvorak is the staff. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is a project now called Harriet's. In September of last year, most of you, I should say, reviewed an application for the Crooked Pint Ale House located at 4000 Lindale Avenue South. 3 applications were approved as part of that project, including a parking variance, from 13 spaces to 0, a setback variance along Lindale Avenue South to allow a portion of the building to be built into the front yard setback, and then site plan review. At that time, the applicant had tried to obtain consent signatures from 2/3 of the property owners within 100 feet of this site to rezone the property at 4008 Lindale Avenue South, which is part of your application tonight. In September of 2013, the applicant was going to either rezone 4008 Lindale to the C1 zoning district or add the transitional parking overlay to that site to allow for a parking lot on that site. At the time, they weren't able to get the consent signatures, but they moved forward with the rest of the applications, and that did get approved through the Planning Commission process. Since that time, the applicant has been able to get consent signatures from those 2/3 of the property owners, and the city attorney's office has solidified that list. And so they are moving forward now with the rezoning to add or to change the property from R2B to C1. And then they do need a new setback variance to allow a portion of the drive aisle in the front yard setback, and then site plan review. The building that was approved as part of the 2013 approvals has not changed. The Public Works review, the preliminary development review process has concluded for the building. They are in the process of obtaining building permits for the building. So the building is moving forward. And so tonight we are here to talk about the parking lot, which is what is requiring the rezoning. So the rezoning is from R2B to the C1 zoning district. This site, the 4008 Lindale, is designated as urban neighborhood. Lindale Avenue South is a designated community corridor, and the site, 4008, is located adjacent to a neighborhood commercial node. So 4000 Lindale, which is where the restaurant building will be, is in the neighborhood commercial node. We do have land use policy that talks about neighborhood commercial nodes, that talks about preserving and enhancing a system of these throughout the city. There are implementation steps that talks about discouraging the commercial territorial expansion of neighborhood commercial nodes, except to adjacent corners of that same intersection. But then there are also implementation steps that talk about continuing the presence of small-scale neighborhood serving retail sales and service uses at these nodes. So while we recognize that this property isn't in the neighborhood commercial node, it is adjacent to the neighborhood commercial node. It has and will continue to also be under the same ownership entity as the two properties and will be constructed as a parking lot for the property at 4,000 Lindale. For those that don't know the history of the site, 4,000 Lindale was a former Super America, and they purchased the property at 4,008. They tore down the duplex that was on the site, and then the gas station went out of business. And so these two properties have had similar ownership for many, many years and will continue to do so moving forward as the applicant has purchased both of these properties from Super America. So with that, we are supporting the C1 zoning tonight. The rezoning, the variance and that is needed is from 20 feet down to 0 feet to allow a drive aisle. It's really this area that's necessitating the variance. It's because the accessible space that's located here will use that that portion of the driveway to maneuver in and out of, and so driveways are allowed or permitted obstructions, but drive aisles where you actually maneuver in and out of are not. And so that is what is necessitating that variance. We do find that there are practical difficulties on the site. As you remember or may have hopefully read in the staff report, the restaurant is going to be in addition to an existing building, so that southern wall of the building is already established and establishes that line moving forward for the addition. So to fit the amount of required parking at the appropriate dimensions with the appropriate dimension drive aisles, they do need to utilize a small portion of that front yard, for the drive aisle. And so we are recommending support of that application. And then for site plan review, as I had indicated, they are not, the building was reviewed back in 2013. However, since there is an on-site parking lot now adjacent to it, they do trigger a window requirement for that south building wall. We are recommending that you grant alternative compliance. The existing portion of the building has no windows, and then the back of house operations within the building have been placed along this building wall. They are also going through the building permit process at this time, and so for timing reasons and for functionality within the building, and also the fact that they now have a building with a window requirement on 3 sides, we're recommending that you grant them alternative compliance. The other item that they need alternative compliance for is for the landscape buffer along the west property line. The landscape yard, in this area is required to be 7 feet. The applicant is providing 5 feet of landscaping with a 6-foot tall fence, which meets the intent of the ordinance of fully screening the parking from adjacent residential properties. If we were to move the parking lot up 2 feet, we would reduce the amount of landscaping that we have at the front of the site, which is not going to be screened by a fence, but which will be screened by landscaping. And so it is kind of a trade-off of where we put that additional landscaping. And in this case, staff felt that it was best to put it at the front, especially since the parking will be fully screened from the adjacent residential to the west. There are 3 areas in a site plan review that we are adding additional conditions to. They do have some large areas of mulch on the site, particularly in this area. As we all know, mulch likes to shift on us, especially in heavy rains. And so we are recommending that they provide additional plant materials or different ground cover other than mulch to provide more green and also stabilize the ground in those areas. The landscaped yard on this side is not 7 feet in depth, it's 6 feet. And so because they are proposing to widen the sidewalk, they are able to widen the green space instead to get that full 7 feet. So we're recommending that they do that. And then the landscape materials that they propose in this location don't meet the ordinance requirements for screening. So we are conditioning that they meet those. So those are the 3 applications and staff's recommendations, and I'm here if there's any questions.
Landscaped yard on the north side of the parking lot, is that?
Yes.
That correct? That north, not east?
Well, it's on the, yeah, I guess it's on the north side of the parking lot and on the east side of the parking lot.
East end, sort of.
The east end of the north side, yep.
Okay. You don't want to get me lost now, do you? Just so we all know where we're at. Let's see if there are any questions from commissioners of staff at this point. Commissioner Franzer?
Thank you, President Tucker. At the trash enclosure at the southwest corner of the parking lot, the pavement widens. Can you talk about the functionality of that pavement widening like that?
Oh, in this location?
Yes.
There are actually 2 parallel parking spaces located right there.
There are, okay.
There are 11 spaces, I apologize. You probably have a better, the site plan shows the dimension parking spaces, but there are 12 spaces here. This would be 13, and then this is 14.
Okay. And has the applicant submitted a lighting plan for the parking lot yet?
A lighting? No, I do not believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just check my staff report. No, they have not, but we will require one upon formal submittal for building permits.
We have a question from Commissioner Brown.
Yes, Hillary, if I remember correctly, when we considered the original site plan for this project, we had granted a variance for parking, and I believe it included a condition for requiring valet parking. Does that variance still stand, or has anything changed with respect to the parking situation now that they have on-site parking?
Well, the variance still stands with the property. If something were to happen that this wouldn't get approved, they do have their parking variance in place. I'm not going to remember the condition verbatim, but it went something along the lines of they either need to provide the required parking on site or through a contractual valet service somewhere in the neighborhood. And they do have assigned contractual location. However, they won't, I'm going to assume that they won't actually be utilizing it moving forward with the parking lot construction. But we could ask the applicant that.
Okay, other questions? Commissioner Slack?
Hillary, as part of that variance, maybe I'm wrong, but did we approve 10 stalls?
No, I believe it was 13.
Okay, so 13 is what's required by the ordinance. Okay.
That is what was required.
I had 10 in
correct.
my notes for some reason.
I think the number 10 appears because that is what they thought that they could fit onto this site when they initially came forward or were initially thinking about the rezoning.
Any other questions at this point? I don't see any. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will now open the public hearing. I would like to start with the applicant to talk about the project. If you have anything to say, now would be a good time. Your name and address, please.
My name is Jim Smart, and I'm the, I guess I'm the applicant. We're the designers of the restaurant. And it is our intention to comply with all of the directions from staff. And we're excited to finally be here.
Okay. Questions? Did you have on
Yeah, the address.
your address?
Oh, my address. Oh, 2568 Upton Avenue South, Minneapolis. You know where I live.
Commissioner Kronzer, a question.
Hi, Mr. Smart. Could you walk us through the design elements starting from the southern property line that's adjacent to the residential and move towards the park? I'm wondering, are there fences? Looks like there's some overstory trees. Can you just kind of walk us through what that design
I'm
is?
having a hard time hearing. The
landscaping area between the proposed parking lot and the single-family house to the south, can you walk us through what the design elements are in that area, please?
If you don't mind, I'm going to turn it over to my associate, Daniel Dolan.
Certainly. And if you could touch on what your thoughts are for lighting the parking lot, I'd
Sure.
appreciate that as
My
well.
name is Daniel Dolan. I live at 4105 13th Avenue South. I was the project manager for the Crooked Pine, now Harriet's project. Starting on the south end of the site, we have a 6-foot screening fence that is along the residential property. We do have a retaining wall there as well because there is a significant change in elevation beyond that, or south of the retaining wall, north of the fencing. In this region here is where we have screening vegetation. The overstory trees are the large circles that you see located here, here, and here. Those are also meant for additional screening. And then we get into the parking lot proper, which drains to the east. And if there's anything else additionally, lighting. We do plan to light the parking lot based with wall-mounted lights on the south wall of the building. And then additionally, if it's determined we need additional lighting, we will add short posts to the south landscaped side of the site.
I have a follow-up question. Are you proposing to use full cutoff lighting on that south wall?
We are shielded lighting only.
Full cutoff?
We.
Okay. That would be very important.
He's the lighting guy.
Other questions? I don't see any. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak on this application, please come on up, please, and give your name and address.
My name is Ann Lynch. I live at 4012 Lindale, directly next door. I would like to call your attention to Policy 1.2 in the Minneapolis Plan. Ensure appropriate transitions between uses with different size, scale, and intensity. 1.2.1, promote quality design in new development as well as building orientation, scale, massing, buffering, and setbacks that are appropriate with the context of the area. The proposed project is surrounded by single-family residential properties. It isn't the same as an uptown business district. The size, scale, and intensity of the new bar, restaurant, and customer staff parking lot are obviously different from neighboring residential uses. I expect to see appropriate transitions, buffering, and setbacks in that context. 1.2.2, ensure that lighting and signage associated with non-residential uses do not create negative impacts for residential properties. Lessen the negative impacts of non-residential areas through controls of noise, odors, and open hours to the public. We are going to feel the negative impacts if there's a parking lot right under our windows, especially if the business is open till midnight. Our adult son, who lives with us and is autistic and also suffered from a brain injury when he was attacked at a bus stop in 2010, is super sensitive to noise. The daily noise of such a business and parking lot is going to be difficult for him and us, as well as the odors both from the cars and the odor of frying meat, which is nauseating to vegetarians such as myself. And a party going on next door every weekend till midnight would bother anyone in this neighborhood. People move to East Harriet Farmstead because it's a quiet neighborhood. Policy 1.7, limit new and expanded auto-oriented uses in the city so impacts on form and character of commercial areas and neighborhoods can be minimized. Discourage new and expanded high-traffic auto-oriented uses in neighborhood commercial nodes. A parking lot in use 7 days a week and until midnight on every weekend on what was a residential lot is a new and high-traffic auto-oriented use which will very much affect the character of the neighborhood. Considering the fragile state of our environment at this point in time, I really don't understand why you are even considering paving over a residential lot in a desirable neighborhood for a parking lot for what is supposed to be a neighborhood business. Also in the Minneapolis Plan, executive summary, Minneapolis will be a safe place to live, work, and play. I worked together with my neighbors for years to make this a safe intersection for those of us that live, work, play, and cross the street daily. It took a lot of effort from both neighbors and city staff to develop the Lindale redesign plan, which has made the intersection much safer. I question the safety of a parking lot with cars pulling in and out of Lindale at that point, particularly with the huge gas-filled trucks pulling out of the Superamerica parking lot across the street. We finally have a good quality of life in our area and the neighborhood, in our area of the neighborhood, and relatively low crime compared to what it was previously. And I resent having to go back to what has not been a good experience with high-intensity businesses on that corner. I'm also concerned that a parking lot squeezed between our house and businesses will attract crime, and it will be right up against our yard and house. Concerning the air pollution inherent in a parking lot, I would like to know what protection will be provided for my family and home. I'm concerned about breathing the gas fumes. We experienced that after the SA at 4000 Lindale tore down the house next door to us at 4008 Lindale. We were suddenly exposed to the SA parking lot and exhaust fumes from the cars, even with an empty lot between the properties. Worse yet was the noise and exhaust from idling trucks. They are not supposed to be left idling, but the rules don't apply to refrigerated trucks that deliver food and beer. We see and hear daily trucks that are left idling for an hour or more across the street at the SA while the drivers unload their goods and then hang out in the store or eat or nap in their trucks. When the city issues an air pollution health alert, residents are informed on the City of Minneapolis website. Young children, the elderly, and individuals whom are physically active are considered especially sensitive to elevated levels of air pollution. Be prepared to postpone or reduce vigorous activity, such as me biking to work, maybe. Ozone and fine particles can be drawn deeply into the lungs, so reduce activities that lead to deep or accelerated breathing, such as maybe mowing my lawn with our push mower. Even individuals that are otherwise healthy may experience health effects when air pollutant levels increase. Air pollutant levels are obviously going to increase in our home and our yard if this plan goes through. Besides creating the health concerns, a parking lot next door to us will greatly reduce our property value and quality of life, such as being able to enjoy our yard, as opposed to if there were a house to be built on the residential lot. Are we entitled to any compensation? The bar restaurant is in this to make money, and we will lose money big time because of it. I would like to propose a more positive alternative for the vacant residential lot at 4008 Lindale. Should Mr. Zebner be willing to sell, should you be willing to skip the parking lot? Imagine an environmentally green Habitat for Humanity house on the site. I would volunteer on that project. It would be a much more positive action than paving over the land for a parking lot. It's something to think about. In regards to the current proposal, I urge that you follow the guidelines set in the Minneapolis Plan, which supports livability in the neighborhoods and the environment. We should be able to breathe clean air, sleep at night in our homes, use our yards, and live in a safe and healthy environment.
Thank you. Any questions? I don't see any. Anyone else wishing to speak on this matter, please come on up and give your name and address. Anyone else? I don't see anyone. Okay, I will close the public hearing on item number 4. Commissioners, we have 3 applications. Let's start with the rezoning to C1. Commissioner Wynn.
Thank you, President Tucker. At this time, I'd like to move staff's recommendation to approve the rezoning from R1A district to C1.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded to rezone to C1. Further discussion, Commissioner Wynn?
I think for the same reasons that we approved the project initially for the, I'm not sure if we had the rezoning the first time it came around.
No.
But similar to the previous item was the development, the restaurant is off a community corridor on Lindale, and C1 would be supportive as this intersection of having smaller scale residential commercial uses similar to what is being proposed at this time.
Any other comments on the rezoning? If not, clerk, please call the roll.
Bender.
Aye.
Brown. Cohen. Wynn. Kronzer. Slack. So that is 6-0.
Okay, that recommendation is approved. Item B, variance setback front yard to accommodate that maneuver space. Commissioner Wynn?
At this time, I'd like to move staff's recommendation for variance B and also C for site plan review with the 5 conditions. I did want to note that the applicant had came previously, however, didn't have a parking lot. And I think that I'm assuming that the applicant is coming back just from pressures of previous residents to have parking on site. Initially, we didn't have parking on site, and I feel that these conditions would properly buffer your residential home to the project location.
I wonder if we could just add under condition 4 the specify the east end of the north side of the parking lot so that I remain less confused. Thank you. Okay, further discussion on the motion. Did I get a second on that? Okay, second, moved and seconded. Discussion on items B and C, staff recommendation. Commissioner Kronzer?
I would like to add a condition to C, site plan review, either at the end of condition 1 or a new condition, just requiring that all parking lot lighting be full cutoff fixtures.
Or cutoff fixtures. Full. Okay, we have a proposal to add one condition that lighting be full cutoff fixtures. Do I have a second on that? Okay, is there any discussion? Did you want to say anything about that, Commissioner Kronzer?
Glare into single-family houses is really annoying. from
Okay.
the parking lot.
So to add that condition, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we have before us B and C with 6 conditions. Any other discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call a roll on B and C.
Bender,
Aye.
Brown, Cohen, Wynn, Kranzer, Slack, 6-0.
Thank you very much. That takes care of item number 4. We move on now to item number 13, Betty Danger's Country Club. Staff for that is also Hillary. Oh, Commissioner Slack.
Again, President Tucker, I'd like to disclose that I'm currently working on the Lowry Avenue Northeast Corridor Planning Project, which this site is along Lowry Avenue.
Okay, thank you for that disclosure. It's so noted. And let's see where we will have the staff report in a minute here, featuring the Ferris wheel. This is the Ferris wheel one, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Slightly taller one. Good evening again. This is an application by Leslie Bach for Betty Danger's Country Club, located at 2501 to 19 Marshall Street Northeast. If you haven't noticed, I have a theme tonight. I have bars that previously went through in 2013, and they're back tonight. So, in August of 2013, this project went through at just the 2519 Marshall Street Northeast site for an approximately 6,300 square foot restaurant. It had the Ferris wheel, it had the miniature golf course, and received all of its applications required for that project. Since that time, however, the applicant has purchased the former car wash building at 2501 Marshall Street Northeast. So the site now comes all the way down to the intersection of Lowry Avenue and Marshall Street, as you can see on the zoning map before you. And so what they are doing is they are proposing the same concept of a restaurant. It has the Ferris wheel and the miniature golf course outside. However, the site itself has gotten larger, as has the building. So the applicant is here tonight for an 8,125 square foot restaurant. It requires a conditional use permit to increase the height of the Ferris wheel from that 4 stories or 56 feet up to 66 feet. The Ferris wheel will not be just a ride. Actually, it is a vertical revolving patio, but for ease of saying all of those letters, I will just call it a Ferris wheel tonight for you. They have a variance of the enclosed building requirement to allow the Ferris wheel, the miniature golf course, and then also a food truck on site, and that food truck would be here seasonally. That aspect of the use was not part of the August of 13 application. The applicant owns 2 other restaurants. Donnie Dirks is the name of one of the applicant's other restaurants. That is where the food truck originates from and will be stored at this site, but also will sell food. And I have talked with licensing that is allowed. This site has permission from the council to have a food truck on site, which was required of them to obtain. And licensing will be regulating things such as idling hours, noise, all of those conditions. So you don't see any conditions related to the food truck in the report, but that is because business licensing will be regulating that, as it will with the liquor license, obviously, for the property. There are 3 other variances listed. One is a variance to allow 2 freestanding signs on the site. That was noticed as 3. However, the applicant originally had proposed to have signage in the middle of the Ferris wheel. They have withdrawn that request, and so the variance is to go from 1 freestanding sign to 2. And then the other 2 variances have been withdrawn, and we are recommending that you return those. One is to allow of the sign type to allow sign on the Ferris wheel, and then of height and area for the Ferris wheel, but those are no longer applicable. And then site plan review. So the applicant is proposing to construct an addition on to the existing car wash building. And that existing car wash building in this site plan is in this location. So this is the existing car wash building. The rest of the building there in red is the addition that they are proposing. And I guess I'll just walk you through the site really quick, and then I'll get into the applications. As you may have guessed, this is the location of the Ferris wheel, so at the corner of Marshall Street and, I'm sorry if this is not showing up correct, Marshall and Lowry. The miniature golf course then is located just north of the building, and I think it's the 9th hole, comes through the building and ends over here in this location, just as if anyone wants to know. And then the parking lot then surrounds the property on the north and east sides of the site. So that is the site layout. We are recommending approval of all applications, subject to several conditions of approval this evening. The Ferris wheel requires the conditional use permit to increase height. This is an application that was approved the last time. It was requested to go 6 feet taller than what was allowed. They are requesting to go 10 feet taller. The profile of the Ferris wheel and that it is of an open design, we don't feel would be detrimental to the surrounding neighborhood. We feel that a building at 66 feet would have more of an impact on surrounding residential properties to the east. The applicant has stated that there will be no noise or flashing lights associated with the Ferris wheel. We have made that a condition of approval, and that the hours of operation will be regulated through business licensing to further mitigate any potential adverse impacts on the surrounding area. There are 4 additional conditions or standards, that need to be reviewed when looking at increased height. One is access to light and air surrounding properties. Again, because it is a Ferris wheel and it is open, the shadowing will obviously move as the Ferris wheel rotates around, but also given the time of day, the shadows will be minimal. We felt it is also pushed all the way to the corner of the site, and so most of that shadowing will fall on the site itself. So I guess I covered access to light and air and also of shadowing. The other 2 standards under scale and character of surrounding uses, and then preservation of views of landmark buildings and open spaces. And we don't feel that the Ferris wheel will harm any views. As far as scale and character, it is somewhat of a unique feature to compare to other buildings, because it is not a structure. It is it's not a building. It's a Ferris wheel. But given the variety of architectural buildings in the neighborhood, we feel that it is compatible with the neighborhood. For the variance of the enclosed building requirements, again, this was approved back in 2013. I will point out that food truck location, this is one of the original car wash bays. So when it is not in operation, it will be stored in the building in this area. However, when it is outside serving food, it will be located in this location. And I apologize, my blue pen isn't showing up very well on the blue ink. So that is where that food truck would be located. So the food truck, the Ferris wheel, and the miniature golf course all need the variance. Again, with the conditions that we're recommending, specifically that there be no music or flashing lights associated with these uses, we feel that any impacts of those will be mitigated, and also they are subject to the business licensing requirements. As for the freestanding signs, the former Psycho Susie's had a freestanding sign on the site, and this is what that sign looked like. I know this is very small. I'm not sure. I'm going to guess that I do this. So it is a pole sign. It is still standing. And then the car wash had a sign that is actually used by the neighborhood organization for messaging purposes. So the car wash had a freestanding sign, and the Psycho Susie site had a freestanding sign. We're combining them into one zoning lot, so technically now there are 2 freestanding signs. It is an existing condition, and they are used for very different purposes. So we found that that was a practical difficulty of the site, and we are recommending that you grant approval of that variance. As far as the site plan review, I will just go through, as I did with the last application, the items that need alternative compliance and then the conditions that we're adding onto the site. And then I do want to discuss one a slight language change to the wording of one of the conditions for the CUP and the variance, as it pertains, or comes back to the discussion that this body had in 2013. So the two areas that need alternative compliance have to do with building placement. The zoning code requires that buildings be located within 8 feet of street walls. The building is located between 11 and 59 feet from Marshall Street, and then between 15 and 116 feet from Lowry, and that has to do with this portion of the building, and then obviously when you measure this portion, and then when you measure this portion of the building, and then this portion of the building. We are recommending that you grant alternative compliance, partially because of the existing placement of the building, and then to contain some of that outdoor activity away from the residential properties to the east. They have constructed an L-shaped building and located that Ferris wheel and some of that outdoor dining towards the intersection of two streets. And so we are recommending that you grant alternative compliance for that. The other area that needs alternative compliance, this is that north building wall. This faces the parking lot. This area of building is 29 feet in length and blank. Or void of any architectural features. Those are the restrooms on the other side of that wall. Given the nature of what's going on inside of the building, we are recommending that you grant alternative compliance for that. I do want to point out, during the conversation in 2013, the condition pertaining to music and flashing lights, and as it reads in your agenda tonight, as I cut and pasted from the former staff report, it reads no music, noise, or flashing lights. I would like to suggest that we eliminate the word noise. That is what is the word I'm trying to think of? Ambiguous. Thank you. To measure noise. Obviously, people make noise when they talk, and it is reasonable to expect that people will be talking when they're outside. The restaurant is allowed to have outdoor speakers that play music on the patio. And so as to not overly burden the applicant and to make the lives easier for those measuring noise affiliated with outdoor dining, I'd like to suggest that we remove the word noise. So both of those conditions in
So that's
A
condition-
number 2 and B number 1 would read no music or flashing lights shall be associated. And so we would strike the word, we would strike common noise from both of those, please.
Okay, are there any other modifications you're?
No.
Okay.
I guess I just wanted to go through the conditions of approval for site plan.
Okay. No.
Sorry.
This was a consent item, so.
It was. On the site plan, there is mechanical equipment sitting along Lowry Avenue in this location. We're recommending that be screened with landscaping. For those elevations of the building that contain hardy board, we are recommending that not more than 30% of each elevation not be such, and that is a standard condition that I know the commission is discussing and that we're starting to see on most of our projects. We are recommending that there be 14 canopy trees on the site. They have 13, so we will just need to have them add one more to be in compliance with that. All of the parking for this site is located towards the north. The principal entrance to the building is located here. There is also another principal entrance into the building here to capture some of those that also park. Given that everything from here up is an addition or the site will be altered, we are recommending that there be a 4-foot wide walkway that connects this area of the parking lot to Marshall in order to allow those that are parking here or even in this location to cross over and safely cross to the main entrance. So that is condition number 6. The next condition deals with the trash enclosure. They are proposing, just as I understand it, a concrete block, a cement enclosure As you can see, this is that existing building, the existing car wash, which is concrete block, and so they're applying a argyle pattern to it and putting wood over it, and we're recommending that the trash enclosure looks similar. The trash enclosure is used partly in conjunction to screen the parking and to buffer some of the noise from the neighbors to the east. And then part of the lighting plan that was submitted for this project shows foot candles not cutting off at the appropriate measurements along that east property line where we do have residential. So I'm asking that the applicant go back and look at their lighting levels or their lighting fixtures for better cutoff purposes, so as to not produce glare across the alley and onto those properties. So that is all of my conditions, and
Okay.
thank you for your time.
Thank you for a very thorough report. Let's see if there are any questions, staff, at this point. Commissioner Kronzer?
Thank you. Hillary, can you quickly walk us through the other businesses in this node and let me know if they have parking lots or not?
I wish I lived in Northeast. I'm not as familiar with the other businesses in this node. And maybe the applicant could do this better. These are warehouse buildings in this location. The new Minnehaha Watershed District site is located here. I believe this is Tony Jaro's, if I'm not mistaken.
Home of the greenie.
So I got that correct. I am not sure, honestly, what these two businesses are. This is a park. This is a liquor store. That was a test, and I didn't do very good, did I?
Any more, Kronzer? Commissioner Slack?
Hillary, I have a question and a comment, and maybe this is more for licensing, but the food truck is a new element, and you stated that it will be in operation. What are the proposed hours of operation?
I do not know. It would be seasonal. I do know that given just the cold and people won't be sitting outside eating, but I would let the applicant answer that question.
Okay, and I guess this would be another question for the applicant then, but I'm glad that you've requested as a condition the sidewalk, because the sidewalk was, I think, a poignant conversation that we had as part of the last presentation. And so sidewalk on the north edge of the mini golf area, but then also potentially the connection that would go north and south past the food truck to the rear entrance. I'm wondering about that connection, and so maybe the applicant can respond to that.
Okay, well, we'll get to that in just a minute. I don't see any other questions of staff at this point, so let's move on to the public hearing. I will open the public hearing and ask that the applicant or representative of the applicant come up first. And you may present or just stand for questions.
Good evening. My name is Tom Wasmoen. I am the principal of Trimground Architects and Engineers, and we've been working with Leslie Bach and Shannon Weed for quite some time to get this project rolling. And Hillary did a great job with presentation, and so I will just answer questions as they're put to us. The north-south connection, I think, was one of the questions. So if I could just pull up this board. So this is a little bigger version of what you saw up on the screen there, and what we have proposed is a patterned textured walkway that would happen coming from the parking lot up here to the second primary entrance of the building here, and also basically paving all the way back to Lowry. And so when the food truck is in here, this literally acts like a sidewalk with a transitional curb cut right there. When the food truck is there, there's still a couple of feet on the edge there that you can come around. So there should still be room that you're not walking in the drive aisle.
So how does the food truck interface with the patio, and how do you actually serve food out of the food truck there?
There'll be a gate here, and the food truck has a window on the side, so it will be. It's just another way for us to add another level of activity in that area.
Okay.
Does that make sense for everyone?
Can I continue with?
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if you have that on the smaller version you could put on the overhead. That would be helpful for us to see on our screens and also any viewers at home.
So what we're saying is that the food truck would park in here when it's there to serve food. Otherwise, this whole area would function as a north-south paved sidewalk area. This area is actually above the curb. Then there's a transition, and this would be a paint island with a pattern in it. So people would come to this point and walk this way to that entrance at the east side of the building.
Did you have more, Commissioner Slack?
Just a couple more.
Sure.
Specifically, as it relates to parking, I think when we saw the previous proposal, we had more conversations about the parking lot and access, and I think it's great that you were able to buy the adjacent property and reuse the building and subsequently expand your parking, and you're way over your parking requirements. I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to look at adding maybe a few more stalls. The one thing that I've heard a lot, and it appears, I think, in the neighborhood response, is the amount of parking, especially in that core area. The streets, the right-of-ways are very tight. There's obviously residential, adjacent residential, right on the other side of driveways. And is there an opportunity to add a couple of more spots on site to accommodate some of those initial concerns?
I think the quick answer to that is that we have gone from 17 stalls to 43, and there is an opportunity to add stalls. But two of the things that we were trying to accomplish is comply with the landscaping requirements that we had for the site, and also to again maintain some of the existing vegetation. So this area here, which could potentially have then 2 or 3 additional parking stalls, is left green as a buffer to break up the parking and also to protect a couple of existing overstory trees on site. Seeing as we have to find one more, protecting the couple that we have is kind of important to us.
Can you describe the edge treatments along Marshall and Lowry?
I'm sorry?
The edge treatments. So what happens at the right-of-way line at the back of sidewalk along Marshall and Lowry?
We have a decorative open railing fence, there's an existing fence that's part of the old Psycho Susie site. So if you're familiar with that at all, it would be a picket fence that would be high enough to keep people from going over it, and would be painted to go with the rest of the building. And that's hard to read on the colored site plan, but basically we're controlling from the corner of the building back to Lowry, down behind the existing neighborhood sign, and then along Marshall to the main entrance, and then we pick it up again on the other side of the entrance, and we're going around the mini golf area, and then back to the building here. We're doing that in order to control the movement of folks in and out of the site. We're protecting pedestrians on the street. We are protecting patrons from people crossing over, and we're limiting people being able to get in and out of the site when it's not in use.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Cohen, was your question answered?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well,
Commissioner Kronzer.
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What happened? Okay. Let's talk a little bit about Ferris wheels. This is my first Ferris wheel approval.
Okay.
I'm interested in where you get came up with the design. I'm sure you probably haven't designed many Ferris wheels previously, so who do you go to for the designs on this? What are the safety features on this sort of thing?
Well, this is my first Ferris wheel too.
Okay.
We are calling it a vertical rotating
Right,
patio because in terms of its use, it's not intended to just give rides to people.
Right.
But it's intended to be part of a dining experience. So you'll get.
I understand that there will be tables
Right.
there, and you can dine, and you.
Yes.
It will not be fast moving. It'll go around.
We'll go slowly.
Yeah.
Right. And so Yeah, how do you do a Ferris wheel? Where do you get a Ferris wheel, right? So Leslie Bach, who's the owner and our client, has done some research on this, and we've been working with a gentleman from Rides for You, which is a company out of New Jersey, actually, that represents many manufacturers of amusement rides and entertainments. And he's been working with us on the specifications, the safety
Get all
issues.
our entertainment features from New Jersey these days, so this is just another
Well,
one.
let's not go into that, okay? This is a family program. Anyway, lens source for new construction is Italy, and the wheel will be manufactured brand new with all the current requirements for safety and control and ride control, and be delivered to the dock in New York in May and assembled on site in June.
Who inspects it for safety and performance?
My understanding is that the state of Minnesota has a amusement ride inspector who inspects the rides at excuse me, Valley Fair and Mall of America, among others.
Okay.
And they both have Ferris wheels, so my understanding is he's intimately involved with the details of that and how they work.
In height, and is this taller or larger or smaller than the other Ferris wheels we have, like in Valley Park or in the State Fair? Or how does this compare with them in terms of
I neglected to
size?
bring the diagram with me, but the 20-meter wheel is the smallest wheel that this manufacturer builds. So, oh, you've got it. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, let me show you this really quickly. So you can see, sort of, I'll just pan over this.
Upside down.
There we go. There you go. Oh, you zoomed out for me. Okay, great. So as you can see, I mean, these things go from like the eye in England to the Navy Pier in Chicago, and we're all the way down here.
I see.
So we've got the smallest, but hopefully the most attractive Ferris wheel this side of the Mississippi.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Kronzer, you have some questions?
Yeah, just a few. Along the east property line, is there a fence there? And if so, can you explain?
There'll be a solid wood fence along the alleyway.
Mhm.
There was concern by the neighbors during the neighborhood meetings that we had regarding trash that had been getting in the alleys with the previous Psycho Susi's on the site. The way we've responded to that is to provide a full enclosure on that side, so there will be neither people going in and out of the alley on foot or on vehicular traffic. There will be control with the trash. If there were to be something blowing in the wind, it would hit the fence and not blow into the alley. And further, our trash enclosure is oriented to our site and not to the alley, which I believe the original was before.
Okay.
So we have control. We're very concerned about controlling our trash on this site.
Okay. And then the occupancy of the restaurant patrons, do you know about how many occupants the building would hold?
The occupancy is approximately, if I remember correctly, 154. 154 inside, and it's on one of the diagrams I think that we've submitted, but there's actually more seating during the summer outside than there is in the inside.
Sure.
So I believe that the total, including the seats on the Ferris wheel, is approximately 328.
Okay.
Considering inside, outside, and rotating.
Other questions? Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any other questions. I will continue the public hearing.
Okay. Thank you.
I know someone wanted to speak about this, so come on up and give your name and address for the record, please.
My name is James Ditlevson. My address is 2438 Grand Avenue South. More applicably, I am the general manager at the Sample Room, which is located at 2124 Marshall Street. The biggest concern that certainly we have as a local business that's going to be in between Psycho Susi's and Betty Danger's is street parking. We have a limited amount of parking. I guess A lot of what I have is just some questions as far as with the capacity of 346. I believe Commissioner Kronzer asked, like, what is the occupancy? Obviously, that's seating, that's pure seating for 346 people. What's the capacity going to be? Because it's great the fact that we're right along the river, but unfortunately, there's no parking on Lowry, Lowry to the west, and there's no parking to take that. Already now, with the last couple of summer times, with the patio size of Psycho Susie's, they're parking, and we're located approximately a block and a half to the north. Already, they go well beyond where our our establishment is. During the week, it doesn't impact us that much, but on a Friday or Saturday night, it's very impactful. A lot of our regulars, of course, don't want to park that far away. I guess one of the big questions I have is, like, what are your plans for valet? Oh, sorry. Some of the questions we have is valet. I mean, obviously, they're going to, with the size of that, with that capacity size, and that's just the people that actually can sit down, let alone the people that can wait, let alone the people that can stand around. All of Marshall Street is going to be taken up. Very simply, fortunately for me, for my parking, I almost always close the bar. So we only allow one person to park in our parking lot. I think we all remember the big storm last year, which was Friday, June 21st. That does happen to be my birthday. That day I opted not to close, so I parked in the street. Well, it was we know that we had bad weather last year, but it was a Friday and I had to park more than 2.5 blocks away. We hear that from a lot of our guests because we have approximately 22 parking spots. I guess the biggest question we have, certainly we have concern because it's probably going to suffocate us during the summertime. Initially, during the winter, it won't because of the size of the restaurant. We'll go from 154 down to 154. But during the summertime, that's going to hurt. I mean, it's going to hurt our business. There's no doubt about it.
So parking is your main concern with
parking
this?
That's the only concern we have.
I don't know if you got through the report, but their proposal is for more parking places than the code requires.
Yeah.
You have to keep that
No,
in mind.
I did hear that. Part of it is just garnering the information.
Were there other points you wanted to make besides the parking?
No, the only question I really had was what's the plan for valet, but that was mainly it.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions? I don't see anyone else wishing to speak on this application. Are you the applicant?
Hi, my name is Shannon Weed. I was the previous general manager of Psycho Susie's. Now I'm the VP of operations for Psycho Susie's, Betty Dangers, and Donnie Dirks. I stepped up to speak about the parking. We will be having valet at Betty Dangers. I just spoke with Bob today from River Liquors, and he is verbally committed to the 32 parking spots in his parking to allow Betty Dangers use of that. For valet or just to park additional cars in, but Betty Dangers will have valet. In addition, we'll be introducing a tiki tram coming up in the summer, which will be allowing people to travel from Psycho Susie's, Donnie Dirks, and Betty Dangers, and that will also allow for more parking as well. Donnie Dirks has parking, a rather large parking lot, and there's an opportunity to park there and to kind of move people around in that direction as well.
Okay, any questions?
Question.
Mr. Kronzer.
Would you allow others not going between one of your businesses to ride the tiki tram?
Anybody going in that direction. We're still, figuring out the exact details, but we want to be a good neighbor to everyone, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this? Anyone else? Okay, I will close the public hearing. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 2 to return. Commissioner Wynn.
Thank you, President Tucker. At this time, I'd like to move staff's recommendation to approve the conditional use permit with the 2 conditions and the text change to eliminate noise from condition 2. Also approve, move on variance B to approve staff's recommendation with the 1 condition and also the text amendment to remove noise from condition 1. Also moving variance C, variance C.
Okay. May I have a second? Okay, moved and seconded. Commissioner Kronzer?
I just have a question maybe for staff. I think the intent with removing noise, that what they're trying to get as amplified sounds, because amplified sound could be a little bell thing, or it doesn't fall in the categories of flashing lights or music. So I'm wondering if that's maybe more clarity for you.
We had a conversation that, yes, that could fall under the category of noise and not music. But I guess my point of asking you to strike that is because of the conversation that occurred with this commission the last time the applicant was here, and they actually had brought it to my attention. I compared the original staff report to the actions, and it is correct that the word noise was eliminated because at that time it was, what exactly is noise? It can't be people talking. It can't be speakers with music playing, because those things are allowed and people will talk. So I guess it was just a questionable, how do you regulate noise, I guess. But you are correct in that amplified sounds coming out of the Ferris wheel, or if you get a hole-in-one or something, I don't know what they're proposing exactly for noise with the miniature golf course, but there could be some of that.
I think as long as staff is comfortable with the language, I'm fine with it.
All right. So we have A, B, and C moved, seconded, a change in the conditions removing the word noise in 2 different places. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call a roll on A, B, and C.
Bender.
Aye.
Brown. Cohen. Wynn. Kronzer. Slack. 6-0.
Okay, those are approved per staff recommendation. Commissioner Wynn on just the return D and E.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll return variance D, return variance E, and also then move staff's recommendation of the site plan review with the 8 conditions.
Okay. Moved and seconded, D, E, and F per staff recommendation. Any discussion? If I don't see any, clerk, please call a roll on D, E, and F.
Bender.
Aye.
Brown. Aye. Cohen. Aye. Wynn. Kronzer. Slack. 6-0.
Okay, those are approved. Let's see, do we have any other business? Mr. Wittenberg? No cow meeting this Thursday?
That's correct. Next committee of the whole will be on January 30th. That's currently scheduled to be a joint meeting with HPC, but we aren't anticipating any preservation-related items, so we'll likely tell preservation commissioners they can stay home.
Okay, but we know of some items that we will have?
Yes.
So we will have one last time with our vice president presiding at COW.
If she decides to grace us with her presence.
I certainly hope so. Okay. There being no other business, we are adjourned until our next regular Planning Commission meeting of February 3rd, 2014. Thank you, everyone.